Respected Vice President, Sri S.N. Anand Subramanian, Secretary C.S. Sri Nagendra Rao, Sri Sudhir Babu, Mr. Kannan, and other dignitaries, and my dear members of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. A very good afternoon to everybody. Good afternoon. Okay guys, I just wanted to keep it slightly informal because I know post-lunch session is always difficult, whether it's cricket or whether it's markets or whether it is learning something. See what happens, as long as your belly is empty, your mind also works, it's also slightly empty, but once your belly is full, somehow your mind gets full. That's how it works. So I'm here today to give you a brief on the capital market overview. So, there has been so much which has been happening, and very few people do realize as to how much change is taking place and why it's taking place and how interconnected everything is. It looks so simple, when we see an RBI reducing a rate, or whether US Fed Reserve doing some action, or maybe, the ECB president taking an action. How does this all affect us, and how does it all come together for the corporate world, and especially for India? So I would like to first start with the world economy. The world, of course, has not been too bright. We've got last year, I think it was March 11th, 2011, where you had the tsunami, the mother of all tsunamis, literally ever recorded, and that catastrophe did cause Japan almost, as per World Bank estimates, almost $256 billion. So, we've been coming out of that. Before that, we had the post-Lehman crisis. World has been just tottering a bit. Just about to get on its feet, Greece starts making some noise, and then you find Europe tottering on a recession, and the growth coming down to almost 3.3%. That's what I've said. It's almost 3.3% against 3.5%. With, of course, the greatest driver, the US, also finding it difficult after having QE1 and QE2. Conventional wisdom, nonetheless, is that the world economy should, cope with stagnation, and a shallow recession is something what everybody is expecting in Europe. The ECB's efforts have greatly reduced the possibility of a Lehman-like shock, which did take everybody by surprise due to the subprime crisis. And we find that now what's happening is, we'll come to individual continents, but we find that especially in Europe, the strong are getting weaker. Let it be a France, let it be a Germany, which are the basic growth drivers for Europe. And the questions everybody is asking is, how much time and how much more water do we put in a leaking bucket? So it's something like that right now. These are all the world stock markets in the last 1 year. We find that US, because of QE2, there was a lot of money circulating. That's pumping the markets. They were up almost 7%. Whereas India was down almost 10% year on year. And if you look at it, other than maybe surprisingly Pakistan has done better than us there, and Philippines has done well in Asia, even China has recorded muted growth. Europe, of course, thanks to the recession, a mild recession going on, and the structural changes which are happening out there, we find that Europe is almost, like Greece is down almost 53% in stock market terminology. And we look at the other economies, other than Germany, which is just like 10% lower, all the others are falling way behind. The main driver, USA, has of course, not taken off too much as what we expected. The job market is improving slowly, everything is coming back on its feet, but albeit frustratingly slow. And because of that, of course, markets have done pretty well there compared to the rest of the world, thanks to the more circulating currency out there. And we find that the economy, which was supposed to grow, now is set to grow at around 2.3%, thanks to the inflation levels being very low and the interest rate being pegged at 1%. Come to Europe. Now, as you know that 17 countries are there, who have actually swapped their currency and have taken Euro 1999. After that, there are another 10 countries which have pegged it. So you find that at that point of time, your public debt, which you are seeing on the chart here, you can see that the one which is in orangish brown, chocolatey brown, Italy, Portugal, Ireland, Greece, all of them are almost 100% and above in debt to GDP. So the entire, they've borrowed so much that the gross domestic product, of course, cannot cope up with it today. The rest of them are in shades of peach, like France, Germany and all. It's around 80 to 90%, 99%. Other than Poland and a few more which are in 40 to 60%, you find that everybody's borrowed to their gills literally. And now what has happened? Suddenly the world is cooling down, suddenly everywhere jobs are becoming difficult, things are slowing down. So what is happening? Taxes are not coming in, you're not able to grow, austerity measures have to kick in. And you find that you have to service your debt, which will take a big chunk of your. With that, what exactly happens is that you will have now the recent Spanish bond auction which took place. I mean, we'll be considering and thinking what is bond auctions to do with us, but please understand, if you have bond auctions today, for a country like Spain, which doesn't borrow at more than 3 to 4%, today has to pay more than 7%, 6.5%, 7%. It's like unthinkable for a government to borrow at those levels. Plus, the foreign investors are pulling out. They are scared, that this will go like Greece. There's already 50% unemployment among the youth in Spain. Greece already, of course, is completely down. There's been a 41% because of the austerity measures. There have been protests. You're finding that there's a 41% increase in suicides, which has happened in Greece. So, there's a lot of balancing which, your back is to the wall, literally, when it comes to Europe. And the moot question, what is happening with this is the road ahead. We are finding that hardliners, regionalism is giving way again. And we are finding that, let it be the election, French election, where Sarkozy is there against Le Pen. Mostly Pen may win is what they say, and he's a hardliner. So again, that is bad for France. And again, you find that the same thing is happening even in Greece, even in Spain. The rise of nationalist parties is happening. So there's a tremendous pressure from internally as well as externally for Europe. The stress factors, are quite severe, and we find that, as you can see in this chart here, this is a 10-year chart of production. Though food production has gone up, but food inflation is something which we don't only complain in India, it's worldwide. The same problem persists everywhere. Oil is relatively stagnant, but we find in the next 2 years, the oil production is supposed to come down a bit. Base metals, if you see in the last 10 years, has almost gone up by 40% production, but so have the prices. So at the same time, your cost inputs are pretty going up, and this is what everybody is facing. Coming closer home, we have Asia, which is of course the world's fastest, has the world's fastest growing economy, second China, you have India, you have all of them. But at the same time, we have some issues also. The main issues being that, we like more than 50% of the population lives in Asia. So what happens to that is you've become resource hungry. You have the fastest rising military expenditure. You have the fiercest resource competition. Let it be coal, let it be energy, let it be, any natural resource. You find there's competition for that. So what happens because of that? We find Asia is coming together economically, though of course politically we are poles apart. We find that a lot of historic maritime disputes, territorial disputes. Just 2 days back we had an article, Sri Lankan minister saying that he's going to come to India. He's going to protest here because our fishermen are going and fishing in their waters. So these are going to be there all the time, and this competition which is there, because for water or for energy, this is actually going to impact your growth story. So here we've just given a small graph on that. We find the working age population in India, of course, we are slightly behind the curve. We find that China will start to slow down when it comes around 2020, whereas India, the trajectory is up. The demographic dividend, what we are going to expect, will continue. And we expect that this trajectory of growth, albeit slow, albeit, you'll be tottering a bit here and there, will definitely continue. Now we come back home. Now when we come back home here, we are just talking of the sentiment. What do we have here? You can see one chart here. The blue line is the Sensex, the Bombay Stock Exchange. Okay, one question. What is Sensex? Come on, everybody says that. Exactly. It's the sensitive index or the barometer of the economy, 30 stocks, well distributed, the shareholding is, most of it is public, and they are leaders in the industry. They cover most of the, the whole core sector, and weightage is given for them. So we can see that Sensex from January, 20,000, peaked at 20,000, 21,000, and then it came down to almost 14.5, 15,000. At the same time, you can also see the rupee. The rupee also has been sliding, and the rupee in December touched 53.7 to a dollar. Not that we are not too close, we are back at the 52 levels again. So this is what is happening. Your currency is getting depreciated, your stock markets are taking a hit. And one of the predominant reasons for that, if you go and see, is your foreign direct investment. Now, foreign direct investment is just, to give you a small analogy, it's just like a balloon. The more you want the balloon to grow bigger, the more air you have to pump into it. So the same thing with stock markets. The more money you pump into the stock market tends to move up. And foreign institution investors, as I'll come to some later slides, I will show you the direct correlation between their investments and how you also, as a layman, can start understanding the trends of the capital market. And you can definitely advise your clients if they would like to have any idea from you. We're coming to the wholesale price index. The wholesale price index also, there's a blue line, of course, it's not too visible. It was above double digits, now it's just come into single digits, 8.6, 8.9, 9.6, somewhere in that area. We find that the industrial production, which gave a shocker in mid of 2011, has bounced back. Yeah, we are bouncing back, but not to those extent where we were earlier. The growth is there, but again, the demand from all over the world has slowed down. US has slowed down, Europe has slowed down, etc. So your own domestic demand, because of high interest rates, has slowed down. Or because of that, the capacity, the demand for goods and services has slowed down. So your capacity, your industrial output hasn't been as fancy as what it was earlier. The key driver, as I was telling you, in the capital market and stock market, you can say, is the foreign investment. Now here's a slide which gives you the basic of the foreign investments. The foreign investment in India, we have classified, one is the investment in listed and unlisted companies which come through the route of the stock exchange. That is one route. The other one is institutional investors which, do not come through the stock exchange. They come in like your private capital, your, angel investing, VC, or your FDI. The ones which come through the capital market comes through the FII route. The ones which come through the other route is direct investment, is FDI. The other ones which your investment is in ADR and GDRs. Apart from that, we've also got the investment by NRIs, which also comes under foreign investment, and PIO, or persons of Indian origin. So this is the basic breakup of the entire foreign investment basket here. I want to share something with you because this is where the insights come useful. If you go back and see in the last 12 months how the foreign investment has been happening, you start in April, you were 7,000 crores net, May 5,000 crores down, June 3,000 crores, July, again August we had a huge decline, 10,000 crores was taken out from the market. You find that the whole figure, if you go and see April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, there was hardly any investment. And if I have to correlate that with a stock market, I'll just take you to a stock market chart. This is 2011 here, and this is April, May, June, July, August, September, October. As you can see, there has been, when there was no activity by the FIIs, our markets have been listless. At best, if you get a pull-up, but never lasted. The wave was only down, albeit slowly, it kept on falling. There are other reasons also, we'll come to those. Then subsequently, what had happened, somewhere in December, there was a pause by the RBI. The CRR cuts which were, were there, they just left the monetary policy. And that pause signaled that, yes, hey guys, after 13 rate increases, we have now come to a stage where the government, RBI, has got up and said, let us try to solve this policy, let us try to address this economic issue through monetary means. What do we see here? We see that in Jan, Feb, March, subsequent to that, you find, what do you see? You see a rush again. And you see a rush of 13,000 crores in Jan. February you see 25,000 crores, March you see 8,000 crores. Now if I have to correlate that with the market, this is December middle, when 19 December, and this was somewhere on 11th Jan, and we had a market, the Nifty, which went up from 4,640 as high as 5,620. You had a rally of almost 1,000 points in a span of, you can say, 8 weeks. So this was the sort of effect of the FIIs when they came in with the money. What you saw on the markets. Here again, why am I bringing you from there right here? Now I'm talking only about April. We finished Jan, we finished Feb, we finished March. We saw the rally. And now what do we see? If you go back and see the April figures, there's hardly anything to talk about. And now what has happened? You can certainly find that the FII flows are virtually dried up. So the main driver of your engine is not there. Hardly 68 crores, 280 crores, 1,000 crores, minus, plus, whatever. So net, I think it will be slightly minus but not plus. And this is up to 19th of April. So you can see what is happening. As a result of that, what is exactly happening to your markets? I'll just expand this part and show you. You can see here, this is where you were in February, where you peaked out. March and April, you've been here, completely here.